As soon as you're like, you know what, I'm going to make a short film.
You find all the problems.
You have no excuses. You have an iPhone. You don't play football. I watch a lot of football. I want to be a football player, but you don't play football. What game do you have access to? Whatever that game is, do it and be faithful with a little and be really good with it and take it seriously and respect it and do it as well as you can possibly do it. And then make a note of everything you could have done better and then do it again. Rep it higher.
Met a ghost of a king on the road when I first fell. Fire burning to my knees I fell. Met a ghost of a king on the road.
Here we go. The weather's turned cold. Nate's back in a hoodie.
I'm back in a hoodie. Windy, gray, spring.
Episode 183, though. SASF doesn't stop for time or weather.
Yes, it does.
We never stop.
We've stopped so much.
Or like the Postal Service.
The Pony Express.
Yeah. Anyways, 183. And, we're starting off with some advice for young writers/directors. The question that I had from one of them is, I really want to become a director of movies. He says, I've studied tons of Worldview stuff, Hollywood Worldview, C.S. Lewis, a number of other, the brain food. What else can I do, or am I on the right track to becoming a director?
How old is this person?
They didn't tell me. I'm guessing junior high or high school.
Okay. Just understand, there's nothing wrong with this, but understand that when somebody says they want to be a director, it's like them telling me they want to be a quarterback in the NFL.
Okay. Unpack that. Yeah.
I'm like, awesome. Like, have fun. The amount of work is significantly underestimated. I mean, it's just significantly underestimated. The number of people who are athletically talented enough or just they've been given the gift of the musculature, the body, the limb size, the toughness, the brain to play quarterback in the NFL. And then don't. Like, that's actually a high number. So there's a lot of people who could, who don't. There are very few people who can't do it who do, but it does happen.
Daniel Jones.
Yeah. So it's pretty hard to make it. Now, if you say, I want to be a director, okay, what you're saying is you want people who are invested in making money off of stories to put you in charge of their investment. Let's just say it's a small movie, $5 million. You want people who are going to say, you know what would be a really good use of my $5 million is to have you tell a story with it. Let's go to war together. I'm going to put the ball in your hands. I trust you. How much work have you put in
to be worth that $5 million?
To be worth that kind of a bet. Now, I compare it to football because while there's storytelling and theory and everything else, it is a team sport. There's a big crew. You got to simultaneously coach as the director because you got talent in front of the camera. You got to get their performances out. You are the storyteller over the editor, the writer. Like, you could be coming in as a hired gun and the script is just like fixed. You can't mess with this and you're not going to be in the editing room. So you're just going to shoot it and walk away. And there's an editor that's trusted and there's a writer that's trusted and you're just going to step in and you're going to run one leg of this relay. That happens. That's uncommon, but it does happen. But that's just it's a huge thing to want. And it's not bad to want something huge. That's fine. But how in shape are you? I mean, just...
And then you're also talking about just the business side of it. I remember you and Doug Tenable talking about how much bureaucracy just
that's what I mean.
Sucks the joy out of
how in shape are you in terms of influencing people, communicating with your words, instilling confidence, being worth that level bet? That's big. It's big.
Yeah.
So now move up. You don't want to make a small movie. You want to make a medium movie. 20 million. It's
no, I know. Yeah.
It's insane. It really is truly insane. So when somebody's going to pay you a bunch of money to be the helm of a franchise, Seahawks, the Dallas Cowboys or whatever, or this movie, one of those things, we're going to put the ball in your hands. You're the one who's directing this.
The next Andor season has to save Disney Plus.
Yeah.
That's what
and actually, ultimately, more than anything, your rear end and your skin is on the line for who gets the credit or the blame if this succeeds. So if this succeeds, everybody involved is going to see a boost in their career. Even all the people who tried to ruin it 1,000 times, and you actually had to defeat them and overcome them in order to tell the story.
Make the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Slumdog Millionaire, Sound of Freedom, these movies that hit, boom, and now everybody affiliated has, cachet, and they're going to go on and get more work. And yet there were so many struggles, to make those things happen and to get Sound of Freedom out and have Angel Studios do that thing. The number of people who have told me that they were involved in Sound of Freedom, like, yeah, we helped with Sound of Freedom's marketing. We did this, we did that, the other thing. Who weren't involved? It's
okay.
It's like the finger bones of the Apostle John. He there's all these relics in the Middle Ages that were not necessarily actually apostolic finger bones. The same thing happens every time there's a success, and you just can't care about that. You're ready to go get the win regardless of who all eats. If everybody who benefits and everybody who eats because of your success, you got to be ready to go get the win, even if you get less credit. You're going to get this across the finish line, make it as good as you can possibly make it, be worth the bet. So if somebody's young and they're like, I want to be a director, you better be tough as nails. You better be really, really personable and hard-nosed when you know you're right. You better be able to compromise and play the art of the deal when it doesn't matter, when it's, when you're going to be like, oh, I have to make this movie, but it has to be this actor. I'm going to make this movie, but it has to have this thing. There's always a fixed point. There's always an investor who wants something. There's always business matters that kick in, studio pressures, and so on. You got to be able to wheel and deal while also being a true believer and holding the line for the clarity of your vision. You better be tough, play sports, get knocked around, get back up, keep going. I've told the story before of my friend Darren Doan, who would have a lot of people tell him they wanted to be a director, and could we meet? Can I talk to you? And he would say, if you go film 21 sunrises in a row, and he used to say 30, and then he moved it down to 21, but 21 sunrises in a row, cut them together into one thing and send it to me, and then I'll have lunch with you. That earns a conversation.
Okay, yeah. Because you're demonstrating you can do something 21 times in a row.
Yeah, and something that involved getting up early.
Right.
and so if you can't do that, he doesn't even want to talk to you.
Right.
And people have done it. Like, people have shot it and gotten the conversations, and that's fine. Somebody actually recently texted me that they had forgotten. They'd sent 21 sunrises to the wrong email for me, and I don't know who it was. So anyway, your number wasn't in my phone. I don't know who you are. Somebody gave you my cell phone number. Maybe it was me. I don't know, but I didn't get it.
Okay.
So, but the point is, so if you have that kind of barrier, how much do you want it? How much do you actually want this? Because whatever hurdle I throw in front of you to say, I'll talk to you about it when you reach here, whatever that hurdle is, it's not going to be as hard as the actual job and actually doing this. We understand that strangely when it comes to sports.
Yeah.
I want to win the Super Bowl as a quarterback. Okay. Ambitious.
Sure.
But everybody understands you better be over here working your tail off.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that as much when it comes to filmmaking.
The creative stuff. So I guess that question, you're starting to answer it, but if you were going to try to be a quarterback, there's a number of skills that you break it down to. You start with your youth football and skill sets and a bunch of other things.
Yep.
What does that look like for a director? Because I noticed that you didn't even touch on storytelling
Nope.
ability.
Because they said they're already working on that. That's like
Yeah, okay.
minimum barrier to entry.
Is be able to tell a story with pictures.
Yeah. So if you went and ran a marathon to get a lunch with me to talk about being a director, and then we sit down and I find out from you, like, okay, let's talk favorite movies. Tell me some good films. Who are some filmmakers you admire and why? At that moment, I will know, yeah, sorry, you got no prayer, or you're going to just be another worker bee in Hollywood. It doesn't matter if you achieve, because you're just going to produce crap. You're going to get sucked into the machine and just make what the machine wants.
So what are some, maybe you're giving a cheat code, but what are some of the wrong answers to that favorite director question when you've asked somebody?
Peter Jackson.
Okay. Yeah, love it. I love that Lord of the Rings is about to take a few strays. Yeah.
I mean, there's
because he hasn't. Yeah, never mind.
But the thing is, that's a joke. I'm joking. But if that's like a favorite director, a favorite filmmaker, it's like, oh, interesting. But if people go the other direction, they're saying Terrence Malick. If they're trying to be all arty, it's all about the art for me. Mm-hmm. I want my films to be sacramental.
Ooh, that's a good word. That means full of meaning, right?
Yeah, something like that. That all sorts of alarm bells are going to go off.
Yeah, if they're super art house, then you're going to be like, I think you don't really care either.
Yeah.
You'll never survive the business aspect of this. So you're saying really the only right answer is Spielberg?
No, there's a lot of good. Like if somebody starts saying like, well, I really enjoy what Gus Van Sant did here in this, Danny Boyle over here, like this kind of sequence. I like what Spielberg does in Fabelmans.
Yeah,
I like
Coen Brothers mix of this.
Yes,
here,
it's like if they show a familiarity and they understand what's happened, they know what happened. They know what the director did. It's like they understand, and they've bothered to research, and they know the process, and they're.
So you're just saying it's the throwing a football or footwork aspect, that aspect of talking about.
So think about this: like you want to be a quarterback. Which quarterback do you consider to be good? Can you tell the difference? Like, can you actually tell the difference? So if a coach took a player into a film room and they're watching different elite quarterbacks, can they differentiate? Like, can they see how the quarterback's reading, how the quarterback uses the pocket when they flush? Are they too patient? Are they impatient? Like, what are they reading? What are they seeing in the hips and the footwork? Like, are the hips opening too soon when they're throwing? Like, you have to be so good and such a connoisseur and so uptight that it's about the details to get to that level of greatness, that most people who like movies and would like to be involved in movies don't understand how much of the magic and the love of filmmaking that they have as a consumer is actually informing this. What they're looking for is some form of justification for watching a ton of movies, as opposed to,
sure,
how do I eliminate the magic completely from this for myself, which is what happens.
Right.
So, like, oh, I want to get back in the kitchen and learn how to do this as a chef. I want to be a Michelin star chef. Great. Because I like to eat.
Those two things are not the same.
Those are not the same. When somebody, and I've used this example before, but when somebody tells me that they love movies and they want to work in movies, that's kind of like me hearing somebody say, I love wine. I want to make wine. Like, I want to be a connoisseur. I want to make it. I want to own a vineyard. Why? Because I love wine.
Yeah.
Lots of alarm bells are going off,
like,
right?
Yikes. Yeah.
And you say, what kind of wine? Any wine. Like, I love all the wine. At that moment, you're dealing with a weak personality of somebody who's going to go be an alcoholic, and it's not good. Like, this isn't a great situation. When somebody desires to be a filmmaker, and they actually could go be a contractor, a developer. They love to build. They love to make things. They love to make things with a team. They love to lead a team. I mean, if somebody was a really successful foreman on a highly effective crew building houses, and they came to me and said, I think I would like to be a director. I would say, well, you actually have a lot of the skills. You have a lot of the skills. So then it's like, what have you been doing? It's like, well, I've been reading all this stuff, and I've been doing these master classes on filmmaking, and I love lensing, and I've been reading about lenses, and I know all the ways these different cinematographers lens these films, because that's the director. The director doesn't have to be the cinematographer, but he has to be able to interface with the cinematographer. The cinematographer has to be able to work for him, and he has to be able to like tell him what to do and what effect he's trying to have, and actually care about the glass. You know, it's you got to be able to have that conversation, and then go to the production designer and care about backgrounds, and get into the editing room and care about editing and score, and be able to bring in a composer you trust and care about score and be able to have that conversation. You know, you have to be very versatile. And then you've got producers who think they're those guys who are bringing you the composer and bringing you these different pieces, sometimes very helpfully and sometimes not. So,
okay.
And so then directors get the reputation of being auteurs and hard to work with because they're not very collaborative. And it's like, well, were you being a jackass with bad ideas? Because you really shouldn't be collaborative. Right. So it's such a monumental thing. And I don't want to like backhand the desire to go be a filmmaker. And I would say the best thing somebody could do possibly in high school, junior high, college is to go make films.
Okay.
Like start making stuff. Find out why every group project always fails. Wheels come off, people flake, you can't trust people. As soon as you're like, you know what, I'm going to make a short film.
You find all the problems.
You have no excuses. You have an iPhone. Somebody has an iPhone. You can go make an iPhone short. Mm-hmm. You can start playing with the lens and training your eye, and you can start studying. Go make stuff. Like, you don't play football? I watch a lot of football. I want to be a football player, but you don't play football? What game do you have access to? Whatever that game is, do it and be faithful with a little and be really good with it and take it seriously and respect it and do it as well as you can possibly do it. And then make a note of everything you could have done better and then do it again. Rep it higher and rep it higher and rep it higher. And pretty soon you could find yourself in a position where you're like, yeah, I think I'm worth a $5 million bet. Here, look what I did with $1,500. Yeah. Here, I made this thing and I made $50,000 off of YouTube with it.
Right.
I'm going to take that $50K and I'm going to make something else.
Yeah, you're right. Because one of the biggest things that, when you're applying for a film job, you think it's like write a good resume, but it's like, no, send the sizzle reel that you've done.
Yeah.
That's the proof.
Yeah. Show me what you made.
Right.
Show me what you made. It's like, I love track. I love basketball. I love football. I love sports. I love coaching track. Regional champions, boys and girls.
Way to go, Logos. Let's go.
Yeah. Off to state this next weekend. I love coaching track because of the objectivity of the times. And so people don't think that there's objectivity in the arts, but there is. Just like there's objectivity in athletics, and it's harder to get to, it's harder to have access to, but people who are trained know, and they can see it. So if somebody wants to go off to film school, depending on the film school, that could be great. Depending on the film school, that could be terrible. Depending on their own spiritual health, on the community support they'd have there, there's a lot of factors.
And also just how do you use the school?
Yeah.
How well you do in your classes. What are you trying to get out of the school?
But somebody who only watches football, they've gotten really good at watching it.
Yeah.
You're not any closer to playing the game.
That's actually the second part of this question that I think you've distinguished before between creatives and critics and the difficulty of being both. And then a lot of times when I hear people talk about worldview or perspective of the author, I immediately think you think you're doing author work, but you're not.
Correct.
And I love talking about worldview and what the author's trying to do with their approach. But I also realize that if you're studying worldview and the worldview behind films, you're not actually, that's not the same thing as creative work.
Not even a little.
And I was, they don't even really help each other, I don't think. But I don't know. What do you think?
The worldview stuff is the easiest part. It's omitted. Like, people aren't trained in it. There's a lot of directors out there who are well-intentioned and they don't have it. They should have it. They don't understand beauty. They don't understand whether or not they're echoing nihilism or what lies are creeping into their stories via the other people who are involved.
Sure.
They don't see it. They don't necessarily have that ability to spot. So it's helpful, but that's the simple part. You can figure that out on your couch. That's like the difference between a completed pass and an incomplete pass. Did he catch it or did he drop it? It's not hard to tell. Is that true or is it false? Now, in our world of like really weak-minded, compromised, sold-out people, that's actually a big question. Is that true or is that false? Turns out that's a big, like,
sure, that could be kind of a superpower.
But it really is just complete pass, incomplete pass. Running the right direction, running the wrong direction. Like, it's that basic. So getting that is great if you want to go be a Christian filmmaker who makes a difference. You should have that. But the actual skill set, the actual like vision of a storyteller, and then the personality, the right personality in that storyteller to be at the helm, to be a quarterback of a large team, to keep people loyal to a united vision, to be able to cast that vision, to cast it in a compelling way that you have talent at every level, from the guy holding the boom mic, to the people doing the makeup and the backlighting. Like, everybody's doing all the production design and your set construction, your location scouts, everybody is like, they feel that vision and they're here to go get it. And I've had teams and I've been involved in teams where everybody feels that and they're thrilled. And I've had places where everybody has a job and they're passing time. And that's tough. That's really, really tough, because you have to be able to inspire and motivate and unite and be that unreasonable personality who's still marching onward. Like, is still marching onward to go get this scene, to go get that moment, to go, no, we're shooting this again. Another take. We're doing it again. We're doing it again. We're reshooting this. We're fixing that background, whatever it might be. You have to be the guy who's really advocating for the highest and best version of this particular film that you're helming. And all these other people are shareholders to greater and lesser degrees. And you have to try to unite them and go achieve this. And the baby steps are, can you get your friends and your siblings to execute in a free short film?
Yeah.
I mean, do you know how hard that is?
Oh, man.
How much it's like herding cats?
Yeah, I've been watching my 12-year-old try to get cousins from age 4 to like 10 to do Shakespeare. That's been his goal. And that's been incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's an awesome task.
It also is almost impossible as you watch. You're trying to get a 4-year-old to take it seriously in the sword fight, and 4-year-olds just aren't great at taking sword fights seriously.
So it is really funny, but I think if you're in junior high, if you're in high school, study, get smart, by all means.
Know the worldview,
learn beauty and worldview, by all means. That's really, really essential. But you also have strength of character. You got to have will. You got to have an absolute elephant skin when it comes to people being critical or undermining you or wanting to get political. You got to be ready to just Lewis and Clark this thing all the way through. And no matter how many grizzly bears or bouts of appendicitis people have, you're going. Like, this is where we're going, and you're inspiring people to come along. And if they get off the boat, and you're still going. So even if it's a little high school film, anything like that, a creative project where you have written the script, boarded it, you have looked at shot sequences, and you understand, this is how I'm going to do this. This is my shot projection. And I would actually encourage people to like rip off scenes shot for shot if they're young and learning, like how to actually do this. And then you think, I gotta have somebody, I gotta have lights, I gotta have somebody taking care of costumes, I gotta have people who are actually in these roles. And I need to not be like, yelling at them, whining.
Yeah.
I got to actually be I got to be able to lead them. Go watch Fabelmans.
Yeah.
And go watch the autobiography of Spielberg talking about this progression. And you see the emotionally charged weirdness around him and how fraught that was with his mom and his dad and everything and his friends. But the thing he really got them, that he got people into, was he got the people involved in the film inspired. the people who were holding the cameras and were in their costumes, even when he was messing around, in high school, people were loving being part of something. And, they shared this thing. And so you see some high school kid dying on a battlefield very dramatically, and everybody's very moved. And, like that kind of thing. So, I mean, wherever you are, college, high school, down, you want to do this, so start doing it.
Yeah.
Like, go to the gym, go start throwing a football, like just start repping, do it now at whatever access to whatever level of production you have access to, go start doing it.
That's great. I mean, I'd be remiss too if I didn't point out that you can hear Nate and Francis Annan talking about all the different parts of directing on Canon Plus in a video called On Directing.
Francis is a great example of a director who stays like so committed to very, very committed to listening to him describe how he got some of these sequences and shots. And it's awesome. But at the same time, when he talks about Escape from Pretoria and which things he lost, which things were cut, which things he had to compromise on, that's all the business and the politics and the interrelationships where you have to have this fiery vision for this project and be a politician.
Sure.
And be able to cut deals and motivate people and walk away from things you love creatively for the overarching good of this project moving forward. And
I have thought that it does seem like it'd be really valuable for people who want to be authors to have to work on a movie, because the ability of pitching your own project and having to adapt to other people's opinions and also being to persuade other people that your idea is a good one and what those are all skills that I think authors or aspiring authors get alone with their laptop and they think, yeah, my baby's perfect.
Yep.
And then if anybody's like, well, I actually think your baby needs to be improved, that's when a lot of problems happen. And it seems like with movies, you just don't ever get the auteur approach to, this is my film that I've made from start to finish. Unless you think the movie's so. I can see Nate's has names flashing through his mind. I guess if you... Okay, we'll stop at the first part. Yes, sometimes it happens. It perhaps shouldn't. Maybe it just happens with creative projects.
People are the worst, and creative people are the worstest of the worst.
Right.
I
suppose there's Frank Lloyd Wrights in every profession.
I think the creatives. I think we really are just not team players. I think creatives. There's a lone wolfness to every strong creator I know, but you have to be able to, if you're going to publish professionally and well, you normally have to be able to be a team player at some level. If you're going to be involved in film, you absolutely must. But there is a strong capability of being alone with your vision and your ideas and pursuing this art, this concept, this structure. That there's a strong lone wolfness in everybody I know.
That's good. Okay. Another question about this. From William, advice for aspiring authors. Over the past year, I've read and reread portions of The Fairy Queen, Canon editions, he says. So good for William. And have been pondering over the allegory and how to balance it. I tend to fall with Tolkien when it comes to allegory, but C.S. Lewis wrote allegory expertly, and both were influenced by The Fairy Queen. Overt, well-done allegory. I was wondering how writers should balance it and how to effectively do so.
Lewis denies that he wrote allegory. Just like Tolkien. He and Tolkien have the same opinions of their own works.
So the creators that you referenced both
would say they're in the same boat.
And they say they're not using allegory.
Correct.
And
are they wrong? Yes. But do I understand what they mean? Yeah, I do.
I think the whiff of the question we're talking about here is like, yeah, if you're approaching Chronicles of Narnia or your own writing as if it's an allegory, you're kind of off on the wrong track.
Totally.
You should be approaching it
it's not allegory.
It's not the opposite.
You should be approaching it like it's plagiarism, not allegory.
Yeah. That's
theft.
Good. Taken from God.
Straight up theft.
From the
not
scripture.
Allegory.
Yeah. I like that.
So
you should be studying character and plot and the other things, working on writing them.
So, for example, does C.S. Lewis embrace heresy about the atonement because of what he does with the lion buying Edmund? No.
That's so frustrating.
No.
Yeah.
He does not. He's not talking about the atonement.
He's talking
about
Aslan's
Narnia and Aslan, what Aslan did to get Edmund. It's not an allegory. And he would maintain that passionately. Now, is it allegorical? Is it on a scale of 1 to 11? Is it allegorical? Yes, of course it is. Because allegory is metaphor. It's just really, really watertight, clean, one-to-one metaphor.
Yeah.
And metaphor is much more fluid and broader and doesn't have to be exact.
And arguing from what you said before, if all words are in fact connected,
and they are,
and the worlds are words, then all worlds are also connected, and then you've got the connections that we work
Ta-da. If I say God is a rock and his work is perfect, he's not a rock.
He's actually not physical.
He's actually not a rock.
If you say he's physical, that's
and also I would like to point out that rocks don't work, much less perfectly. If you get into that, like obviously, but it's a metaphor. Is it allegory? Is it a metaphor? Allegory is metaphor, but allegory as a genre, as a type that Tolkien and Lewis are referring to is a far more precise Tupperware container, one-to-one thing. And even then it always fails. So if you want to talk about allegory, look at Pilgrim's Progress. I'm going to tell you a story of someone named Christian.
Yeah.
And they have a burden on their back. And we're on this walk, and we're going to go by a place called Vanity Fair.
Yeah.
And there's all these very, very heavily correlated. And we're going to meet somebody. And what should I name this guy? His name is Talkative.
Right.
This guy's name is Faithful. Like it's, it's so allegorical. That's not what Lewis is doing. That's not what Tolkien is doing.
I also think I could get in trouble here, but the Fairy Queen, the best parts of the Fairy Queen are the non-allegorical parts.
100%.
The story, Una works better as Una and not the church.
Correct.
The dwarf doesn't work at all, even though he's supposed to be reason. Like, it's all the
only
Saracen,
good thing in the allegory is the battered armor.
Yeah.
That's it.
Sweet.
The hand-me-down armor.
Yeah,
like
that's cool. That's cool.
And I'll give you that one. And I don't like
the Saracen enemies, Sans Foy, Sans Loy, all those guys, they work better just as plain old Saracens. We don't need them to be lawlessness and
without law, without joy.
you have to read it like that. Sans Loy.
Sans. I'm going to meet Sans joy. I'm going to meet Sans happy.
Yep.
Sans
and Sans Foy. There we go.
Sans faithful.
Yep. Right.
All the Sanses.
Right. Yeah, that's fine.
Not to mock Spencer too much, but come on, Edmund. And I love the Fairy Queen.
Right. I guess House of Pride is pretty good. I'll give him that section too.
I really just basically stole Duessa, and that's it.
Yeah. There you go.
So
Duessa's awesome.
Yep.
Without having to figure out if
graphic,
actually,
but awesome.
Actually, the Roman Catholic Church.
She is. But the point is that allegory is, there's nothing wrong with allegory. There isn't. It's totally fine in its place. That's not what Lewis and Tolkien were doing.
You're just saying allegory is metaphor with one-to-one correspondence.
With intense precision, and you're supposed to be able to lift up the tab and be like, oh, this is,
right.
I'm assigning this to that, and everything's about a this to that discovery. And so I'm saying all the things I don't mean, but you can see this and be like, oh, he's talking about the church. Oh, he's it's all about look away, look away, look away. And a powerful story, a more powerful story is a story that actually immerses and creates a vicarious experience internal to that story, as opposed to informative truth statements that are elsewhere.
Right.
So, but when I tell somebody, don't be the prodigal son, I am making an allegorical connection.
Yeah, right.
I'm creating one. Don't go do that. Don't be this character. Don't be that character. I'm using real life, and I'm using stories told by Christ and in Scripture and history. I could say, don't turn into a little Napoleon. It's like this is, you can use that and use it allegorically applied to other people or to yourself. That's fine.
Yeah, don't be the people. Back when people used to be in Facebook groups, I was in a Reformed group, the largest Reformed group on Facebook, and they had a giant argument about whether Aslan was a Second Commandment violation when portrayed in movies.
Obviously.
And at that point, you realize these people have to get outside. They need some more football or something. I don't know.
They need to lose their internet connectivity.
Yeah, they need to be.
They also should go play football.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Anyways, they were the admins of the group.
I don't remember this guy's first question, but I got all distracted popping off about Allegory.
That was it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's advice for aspiring authors. And I was saying, don't look to Allegory as your advice for an aspiring author.
Yeah, do not. Don't do it. Steal architecture, steal characters, steal truth, goodness, and beauty from the world, but do not try to create allegory. Just don't do it.
There we go. That's the end for today.
I will say this. Some old country pastor who's like, I'm going to write little allegorical stories for my grandchildren about how not to be naughty.
Yeah.
That's adorable. That's fun.
Kids like it.
Do it. So hopefully it's, let me tell you the story about how the bunny rabbit in the backyard got et.
Yeah. Those are fun.
By not obeying its mother.
One of my favorite.
There's things like that where.
One of my favorite, I can't remember who wrote this, but it's the story about the two girls, the one who was super good all the time and got medals always for it. And then a wolf came and her medals wouldn't stop clinking and she got eaten. And that was the end. That was the end of the story.
It's like allegory for.
Allegory for people that I know.
Ideal. So yeah, there's our shot at allegory. I would also like to say there's nothing wrong with allegory as a form over there, but it's not going to go impact the world right now in the way that even it could when Bunyan did what he did. So when Bunyan wrote Pilgrim's Progress, even though it was very on the nose, he was inventing dialogue, like the concept of dialogue in prose. He was inventing a big chunk of the novel. At all as a form was coming into being. And so it's a very primitive thing and it remains powerful, but we're not trying to get back to this very, very early primitive version of an art form that has come a long way over the centuries. So anyway,
it's a good spot to end.
Peace. This has been SASP 183 and we won't remember that by the time we get here next week.
So what is directing?
It's trying to tell a story with images and with sound that communicates something. It's watching a movie and going, okay, I watched that movie, I saw that performance, I really felt sad for that guy or the kid who was abandoned. And why did you feel that? What made you feel that? It's the interest beyond just experiencing this movie, I think, and going, how did they do that? If you have that intrinsic question in your head, to go behind and find out the how, either filmmaking or some discipline within the filmmaking community is probably for you because you're interested in that. Whether you're telling a slower movie, whether you're telling a high-octane movie, know what your shot is. And depending on how you marry those different choices, you end up with a multiplicity of different films. The question is, what film are you going to tell?